Greetings and salutations to the realm of infidelity diaries. Dive into the hidden tales and narratives surrounding infidelity alongside us. At times, existence unveils unexpected twists that defy our ability to foresee. All feels known and serene, yet in an instant, like a flash of lightning in a pristine sky, everything shifts. Initially, it exists just beyond the threshold of awareness, a whisper of sensation, yet with each passing moment, that feeling swells, expanding within until it envelopes your very essence. That was precisely the sentiment that enveloped me that evening, when Jack, my husband's father, graced us with his presence. My name is Kate, and I lead a simple life in a quaint town nestled in Oregon. My life is intertwined with Ben, my husband, and together we have brought two wonderful children into the world, to whom we have devoted our every effort. Our home rests beside the forest, and at times when solitude envelopes me, I sense the trees murmuring amongst themselves, sharing secrets steeped in age-old mystery. Yet, as I have come to understand, the true mysteries do not lie deep within the forest's embrace, but rather in the familiar hearts of those we hold dear. Jack made his entrance without warning, despite having previously communicated his intention to visit. His rare visits had become a familiar occurrence for us, a testament to a man deeply immersed in his work, stationed in another state. Yet, he consistently carves out moments to come see us. As the evening unfolded, I welcomed him at the door, a subtle unease lingering within me, elusive and difficult to articulate. He had always been a reserved, calm individual, yet in that instant I detected a shift in his gaze, a spark that caused me to momentarily freeze. Following our meal, we gathered in the living room. Ben spoke of work, while the children had already drifted into slumber, leaving the flickering flames in the fireplace as the sole witness to our exchange. I made an effort to avert my gaze from Jack, yet his presence resonated within me, stirring every fiber of my being. His gaze felt like an unseen force drawing me in, and though the notion was undeniably absurd, I couldn't dismiss the sensation that an unspoken game was playing out between us. I endeavored to concentrate on Ben's words, yet each time I raised my eyes, I found myself caught in Jack's stare. It possessed an oddity that was both baffling and irresistibly alluring. It transcended mere curiosity. It was an enigmatic pull, a force that compelled me to contemplate the mysteries concealed within his reticent smile. The night deepened beyond the window, casting elongated shadows that danced across the room. The air around me shifted, thickening with an inexplicable tension that hung heavily in the silence. That evening unfolded in a way that felt distinct from the rest, though I was yet to grasp the precise nature of its difference. As the discussions faded into silence and Ben proposed that we all retreat to our respective rooms, an unexpected wave of disappointment washed over me. It was utterly ridiculous, yet I found myself yearning to linger, to keep experiencing the peculiar allure that permeated the air. Yet, naturally, I found it impossible to grant myself that indulgence. I rose quietly and trailed after my husband, leaving Jack to grapple with his own reflections. The hours stretched endlessly into the dark expanse of night. Restlessly, I shifted beneath the covers, seeking the elusive embrace of slumber, yet my mind persistently wandered back to Jack. His gaze lingered, his calmness etched in my thoughts. His voice echoed in my mind, an indelible sound I couldn't shake off. I attempted to persuade myself that it was merely a figment of my imagination, a product of fatigue and stress, yet it proved futile. Within me a sensation was awakening, a feeling I hesitated to articulate. The following morning, I endeavored to maintain an air of normalcy. As Ben and I shared breakfast, we exchanged ideas about the day's agenda. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that Jack's gaze was fixed upon me, as though he were attempting to unravel the mysteries of my mind. It was as if a silent game had commenced, with unspoken rules guiding the actions of both players, each fully aware of the unfolding contest. As Ben departed for work and the children set off to school, I found myself alone with Jack. The house lay in serene stillness, the wind whispering through the trees outside, weaving a tapestry of coziness and tranquility. As I endeavored to concentrate on the mundane tasks of the household, my mind continually wandered back to him. I caught myself attuning to the rhythm of his footsteps, the subtle sounds he produced, and eventually, it dawned on me that I was anticipating our meeting. As I stood at the sink, immersed in the rhythmic task of washing dishes, he made his entrance into the kitchen. His presence was so formidable that a wave of nervousness washed over me, settling heavily in my chest. I refrained from turning around, yet I was acutely aware of his presence close by, and the proximity sent my heart into a frantic rhythm. "Kate!" Suddenly, his voice pierced the silence, causing me to flinch. He maintained his usual calm demeanor, yet there was an underlying nuance in his tone that took my breath away. I pivoted and locked eyes with him. He was nearer than I had anticipated, and a shiver coursed down my spine. His eyes held an enigmatic depth, suggesting he possessed knowledge beyond my grasp. We locked eyes in silence, and in that instant, I understood that our bond had transcended the typical relationship of a father-in-law and a daughter-in-law. Words lingered on the tip of my tongue, caught in the confines of my throat. We were so near that I could hear his breath, and that feeling wrapped around me entirely. A tempest raged within me. I sensed that an event was unfolding that ought not to be, yet I found myself unable to intervene. Each look, each movement he made captivated me, and I realized it was more than mere attraction. It was an experience unlike any other, a sensation that ignited slowly, reminiscent of a fire quietly smoldering in the dark. Jack averted his gaze first, as though granting me a moment to gather my thoughts, yet I was acutely aware that this moment would etch itself into my memory for years to come. I pressed on with my duties, yet each instant of that day was infused with his presence, his glances, his voice. It felt as though a storm loomed on the horizon, its presence palpable even before it began, drawing in all my focus. The day slipped away, imbuing me with a sense that a shift had occurred within the fabric of my existence. I came to understand the perilous nature of the situation, yet I found myself unable to resist its allure. All around me life felt ordinary, yet within, an enigmatic energy was burgeoning, steadily consuming my very essence. Throughout the day, I sought to unravel the mystery behind my emotions. Cleaning, cooking, and household chores were meant to serve as distractions, yet each time solitude enveloped me, my mind inevitably wandered back to Jack. I felt a restless energy coursing through me, yet the reason for it eluded my grasp. An unseen web seemed to weave itself around me, constricting its hold with every fleeting moment. As the evening descended and Ben arrived home from work, I endeavored to maintain my usual demeanor. We shared a meal, engaging in conversation about the mundane aspects of life. Ben spoke of various work-related matters, and I made an effort to pay attention, yet my eyes continually drifted toward Jack, who appeared to be acutely aware of the unspoken tension lingering between us. His tranquility and quietude took on an air of mystery and allure, as though he were poised, anticipating my initiation. Following dinner, Ben proposed a stroll, yet I, feeling fatigued and burdened, opted to decline. He gave a casual shrug, pressed his lips gently to my forehead, and departed, leaving me in solitude with Jack. It was an odd instant when the atmosphere in the room thickened, reminiscent of the stillness that precedes a tempest. A wave of uncertainty washed over me, leaving me momentarily speechless as a subtle shiver coursed through my body. "Kate!" Jack shattered the stillness, his voice steady yet laced with a subtle urgency that caused me to recoil. "There's something different about you. Is everything okay?" This seemingly straightforward question sent a wave of tension through me. Confessing my emotions to him felt impossible, for I was still grappling with their true nature myself. Yet his words, his genuine concern for my condition, caught me off guard, and even more troubling, stirred a longing within me. "Indeed, all is well," I responded, striving to maintain an air of composure. "I find myself feeling a touch weary." Jack remained silent, yet his eyes held on to me with an intensity that felt unusually prolonged. In his gaze I perceived inquiries that eluded my grasp. We lapsed into silence once more. Yet this stillness held no trace of awkwardness. Instead, it was imbued with an unspoken tension, as though we were both poised on the brink of action, yet reluctant to take that initial step. There came a moment when the very presence of him in the same room became intolerable for me. My heart began to race, and my thoughts became a tangled web. I rose from the sofa, deliberately avoiding Jack's gaze, and made my way to the door. I announced my intention to seek fresh air, my gaze fixed ahead, never glancing back. He remained silent, and I stepped outside, allowing the cool night air to wrap around me. The woods encircling our home lay still and serene, with merely a soft wind whispering through the foliage. With a deep breath to steady my racing heart, I ventured slowly along the path that wound deeper into the forest. I found myself in need of contemplation, to grasp the unfolding events in my life. This man, my husband's father, had always appeared aloof and remote. What was it about him that stirred feelings within me, feelings I couldn't quite articulate? These thoughts haunted me, yet they offered no illumination. As I ventured deeper into the forest, I sought to untangle the web of my thoughts. The trail guided me to a modest pond, a hidden gem I had nearly lost from memory. The water lay in a deep, tranquil silence, mirroring the vast expanse of the night sky, punctuated only by a scattering of distant stars. I settled onto a bench beside the water, attuned to the wind as it danced with the branches of the trees. In this quietude, I have at last found a sense of tranquility. I shut my eyes, surrendering to the blissful escape from thoughts of Jack, Ben, and the weight of my worries, if only for a fleeting moment. Yet the tranquility was fleeting. Suddenly, I became acutely aware of footsteps echoing behind me, and a wave of tension washed over me. As I slowly opened my eyes, a figure came into view, drawing nearer. It was Jack. He approached, settling beside me on the bench in silence. His presence once more stirred a sense of unease within me, yet concurrently, I sensed a fresh spark igniting deep inside. A flame that refused to be snuffed out. We lingered in quietude, shoulder to shoulder. The stillness enveloping us was absolute, yet within that hush, I sensed an unseen energy coursing between us. An electric current coursed across my skin, quickening the rhythm of my heart. Within me, two emotions wrestled for dominance. A compelling desire to depart, coupled with an apprehension of the potential consequences of remaining. Jack gradually pivoted his head, casting his gaze in my direction. In his gaze, I perceived the very essence of what stirred within me. Allure. A fervor he had concealed, yet had grown too powerful to overlook. He remained silent, yet that gaze conveyed more than any spoken language ever could. I found myself captivated, unable to turn my gaze or walk away. We were akin to two magnets irresistibly pulled together, regardless of the barriers in our path. My breath quickened, and a wave of fear washed over me, worried that he might catch the frantic rhythm of my heart. In that instant, a wave of fear washed over me, terrified by the realization that I was losing my grip, that the pull towards this man had grown overwhelmingly intense. I realized that remaining in this place for even a moment longer would leave me utterly defenseless against temptation. Yet Jack, attuned to my unease, severed the bond before I could. He shifted his gaze, his eyes resting upon the shadowy expanse of the pond's surface. The tension that had once enveloped us began to fade. Yet with its retreat, a sense of disappointment lingered in the air. I yearned for him to take that initial step, to let the spark we both sensed burst into flames. Yet he may have grasped that it posed too great a risk. "It is remarkably tranquil in this place," he finally remarked, his tone steady and composed once more, as though nothing had transpired. "Indeed." I inclined my head, striving to reclaim my composure. "This location offers a serene backdrop for contemplation." He cast his gaze upon me once more, and in that instant, I understood that this moment marked the inception of something greater. In spite of the tumult of emotions swirling within me, and the lurking shadows of peril, I understood that this night was merely the initial flicker in the blaze that was destined to erupt. We lingered there a bit longer, until the coolness of the night air started to seep in around us. At long last, I rose to my feet. In a similar fashion, Jack followed suit. We made our way back to the house, enveloped in silence, where the remnants of our former lives lingered, waiting for us. Yet I was acutely aware that this night had transformed everything. Upon our return, we found Ben deep in slumber. I nestled into bed, the chill of the night air from the forest playfully brushing against my skin. I shut my eyes, yet slumber eluded me. I reclined in silence, attuned to the gentle rhythm of Ben's breath, contemplating the inevitable transformations that awaited us. This night heralded the dawn of an uncharted journey, fraught with peril, yet I found myself unable to turn away from it. My existence was irrevocably altered, and there was no turning back from the path that had been set in motion. The following morning, I awoke with an undeniable sense that the night spent in the forest was not merely a figment of my imagination, but a reality slowly encroaching upon my existence. All that surrounded me felt oddly recognizable, yet transformed in some way. Thoughts of Jack lingered in my mind, recalling the moments we spent by the pond, enveloped in silence and unspoken desire. His visage lingered in my mind, a specter that shadowed my attempts to engage in the mundane. Ben departed for work at the break of dawn, leaving me once more in the solitude of the house, accompanied only by Jack. The day unfolded in its familiar rhythm. As the children departed for school, I attended to the task of cleaning. Yet all that surrounded appeared to be brushed with fresh, more vibrant hues. With each step Jack took around the house, and with every glance he cast, an unfamiliar sensation washed over me. An electric charge hung in the air, impossible to overlook. Throughout the day, I made every effort to steer clear of him. The thought lingered in my mind, a haunting echo of that moment by the pond, as I feared that solitude would beckon once more, and I would find myself unable to hold back any longer. Still, his footsteps echoed in the adjacent rooms, and that sensation wrapped around me like a dense, suffocating fog. As twilight descended, the sun dipping below the horizon, I caught the sound of his voice beckoning me from the living room. It was serene, as though the world had paused, yet I sensed it was just a veneer hiding a far more profound truth beneath. As I stepped into the room, I made an effort to project confidence, yet within me, a storm of anxiety raged. Jack lingered by the window, gazing at the resplendent evening sky painted in hues of gold. I observed him subtly shift his gaze in my direction, attuned to the sound of my nearing footsteps. "Kate," he murmured, his tone soft, as though gauging my response to the resonance of his words. "Indeed," I replied, striving to maintain a calm tone, even as I felt the challenge of doing so intensify. He hesitated, his silence drawing me nearer, as I found myself captivated by the allure of the unknown. The room enveloped us in silence, with only the gentle whisper of the wind outside serving as a reminder that life beyond our walls persisted in its relentless motion. I discovered myself beside him, nearer than I had planned, and sensed the atmosphere surrounding us thickening and tangible. Jack gradually pivoted to confront me, and our gazes locked. In that instant it dawned on me that escape was no longer an option. A flame was kindling between us, one that refused to be snuffed out. His gaze pierced through me, sending a shiver cascading down my spine. "What is the reason for your avoidance of me?" he inquired gently, as though he already possessed the answer, yet yearned to hear it from my own lips. I inhaled deeply, attempting to collect my thoughts, yet they slipped away like grains of sand through my grasp. I found myself unable to deceive him, unable to feign that all was well. "Because I am filled with fear," I confessed, sensing my throat constricting. Jack inclined his head with a measured deliberation, as though grasping the essence of my words. He advanced a step closer, and I sensed the warmth of his hand brushing against mine. The caress was delicate, nearly ethereal, yet it ignited a tempest of feelings deep inside me. As I lifted my eyes to meet his, a profound understanding washed over me. I could no longer hold back. Jack inched nearer, his breath grazing my skin, and I found myself unable to avert my gaze. In that instant, a fragile boundary separated us, teetering on the brink of vanishing. Uncertainty loomed over the conclusion, yet one truth remained clear to me. I desired it. I desired him. He raised his hand and softly brushed my cheek. The movement was so gentle that I could feel a shiver coursing over my skin. My heart raced with such intensity that I feared he might catch the sound of it. This feeling had become too overwhelming to contain any further. I found myself utterly consumed by it. Jack leaned in closer, and the world around them faded into stillness. I witnessed the depths of his gaze deepen with fervor. As his lips inched closer to mine, I realized it was time to withdraw to put an end to this. Yet I moved closer, sensing his grip firm around my face. At last his lips met mine. It transcended the simplicity of a kiss. It was a liberation from every constraint, every rule and prohibition that had held sway. His lips were tender and inviting, and this kiss stirred emotions within me that I had never known before. Every fiber of my being shouted that this was a grave error, that I was on the brink of a monumental misstep. Yet, in that instant I found myself unable to halt. Jack drew me nearer, his arms encircling me, as though he were attempting to prevent me from plummeting into the chasm I had willingly leaped into. The kiss lingered, profound and intense, brimming with the fervor that had remained concealed within us for an eternity. I matched the fervor of his kiss, feeling his hands glide over my body, igniting a surge of longing deep inside me. I was aware of its wrongness. This moment, I realized, would alter the course of everything. In that instant, my mind was consumed solely by the desire I felt for the man standing before me. As we finally separated, our breaths coming in ragged gasps, I found it hard to comprehend the whirlwind of emotions that had just unfolded. The lingering warmth of his kiss still ignited my lips, while my heart raced wildly, as though I had just crossed the finish line of a marathon. We exchanged glances, attempting to comprehend the weight of our recent actions. "Kate," Jack whispered, his voice laced with an unfamiliar uncertainty that sent a shiver down my spine. It would be unwise to proceed. Yet I interrupted him before he could complete his thought. I understood he was correct, yet I couldn't allow this moment to conclude in such a manner. I drew him closer, our lips colliding once again, this time igniting with an even deeper fervor. This kiss lingered, igniting a fire within me, as his arms wrapped around me once more, offering no possibility of retreat. There was no turning back, even if we had wished for it. This moment was the culmination of our unspoken desires, a truth we had both longed for yet hesitated to acknowledge. Awareness washed over me as our lips met, a realization that this kiss would alter the course of everything, yet I found myself unable to pull away. My desire for him had reached an all-time high. At last, as we separated, an overwhelming sense of the world crumbling enveloped me. I came to understand that our existence would forever be altered. This kiss marked a threshold, one from which there was no turning back, and I found myself uncertain of the path it would carve for us. Yet, there was one certainty that lingered in my mind. There was no turning back for us now. Jack gradually let me go, his gaze still brimming with intensity, yet tinged with worry. The palpable tension that hung between us was impossible to overlook any longer. We were acutely aware of the colossal error we had committed, yet that realization could not halt the unfolding events. "We need to think," he said, and I nodded, at a loss for words in reply. We lingered in that room, enveloped by silence and tension, and I realized that this moment had irrevocably altered the course of our lives. Once our lips had finally separated, a silence enveloped the space, heavy with tension and the weight of unvoiced thoughts. I found myself facing Jack, struggling to comprehend the events that had just unfolded. All that had once appeared steadfast and certain had unraveled into a tumult that left me at a loss for how to cope. Jack stepped back, as though he were conjuring an unseen wall between us. I observed his eyes flitting about, and I realized that he, much like myself, bore the weight of guilt for what had occurred, yet could not resist the magnetic connection that drew us together. "We need to talk," he finally said, his voice a gentle yet resolute whisper. This was an inevitability we both recognized. I nodded, a sharp ache constricting within me. He was indeed correct. This kiss was never meant to occur, yet it unfolded nonetheless. Now we were left to bear the weight of that understanding together. I found myself at a loss, struggling to maintain the facade of normalcy, as if the events that transpired between us had never occurred. "I understand," I responded, striving to maintain my composure. "What comes next?" He gazed at me, and in his eyes I recognized the same torment that was unraveling my very being. He yearned to respond, yet in that instant, the sound of the front door creaking open sent a chill through our hearts. It was indeed Ben. He arrived sooner than I had anticipated. A chill swept over me, a cold sweat clinging to my skin, yet I endeavored to maintain an air of composure. Jack swiftly altered his demeanor, restoring his previous calmness. "Kate, I'm home," Ben's voice resonated, drawing nearer as he approached us in the living room. Jack gave me a nod, a subtle cue that our exchange had reached its conclusion, and then stepped aside to depart. I stayed rooted in my spot, a tempest of fear and guilt swirling within me. As Ben stepped into the room, our eyes locked, and I fought to conceal the tumult of emotions swirling within me. "Hello, my dear," he murmured, approaching me and planting a gentle kiss on my cheek. "Is all well?" I nodded, speechless in that moment. My heart raced, a frantic rhythm echoing in my chest, and I worried that Ben might detect the unease lurking beneath the surface. Yet, he appeared oblivious to any hint of wrongdoing. He found himself lost in a labyrinth of thoughts, weaving tales of his day at work. Jack lingered in the room for a few moments longer, absorbing the nuances of Ben's conversation, yet eventually took his leave, citing a need for solitude. I observed him depart, a wave of pain and fear constricting within me. What might unfold next? The evening unfolded in an unusual ambience. I endeavored to maintain my usual demeanor, yet my thoughts continually wandered back to Jack. Ben, blissfully oblivious, wore a contented smile at the sight of the family reunited once more. We indulged in a film, savored a meal, and engaged in conversation about the day's happenings. Yet within me a tempest brewed. As darkness enveloped the world and we settled into our beds, slumber eluded me. As I lay beside Ben, an overwhelming sense of guilt enveloped me. I came to realize that my actions were beyond redemption, that I had shattered the trust he placed in me. Yet the memory of Jack lingered, his kiss and his touch haunting my thoughts. It felt as though a toxic substance had infiltrated my veins, refusing to grant me any semblance of peace. I slipped out of bed, careful not to disturb Ben, and quietly exited the bedroom. I craved solitude, a moment to unravel the chaos of recent events. Stepping onto the porch, I was greeted by the cool, refreshing embrace of the night air. As I gazed up at the vast expanse of the dark sky, I sought to unravel the mysteries that lingered in my mind. Yet there existed none. Within me lay a void I could not comprehend how to satisfy. Outside, a profound stillness enveloped the world, yet within that quietude, the resonance of my thoughts reverberated. I realized that our kiss would inevitably lead to repercussions. A boundary had been breached, one that demanded attention. Now I faced the daunting task of determining how to navigate life with this newfound understanding. Time slipped away unnoticed, and then, out of the blue, a hand rested gently on my shoulder. As I pivoted, my gaze fell upon Jack. He lingered close, his expression taut and his gaze brimming with concern. "Kate, we need to talk," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, as though he feared shattering the stillness of the night. I nodded, understanding that evading this discussion was no longer feasible. As we stepped into the garden, the shadowy forms of the trees enveloped us, shielding us from the gaze of the outside world. Jack paused, turned his gaze toward me, and I could feel my heart begin to race once more. "This shouldn't have happened," he said, his voice quivering with unease. "Yet, I cannot feign that there is no connection between us. I'm at a loss, Kate. Yet there is one truth I hold dear. We cannot proceed as though everything remains the same." These words struck me with the force of a blow. Though I recognized the truth in his words, I struggled to articulate my thoughts. My gaze was fixed on him, my mind racing as I contemplated the next move. We stood at the brink of a chasm, each step we took fraught with the weight of uncertainty, as if it could lead to our final moment. What shall we embark upon? At last, I summoned the courage to ask, my heart pounding with trepidation. Jack stepped closer, and once more, I felt the warmth of his hand brush against mine. The warmth of the touch enveloped me, yet within it lingered the familiar uncertainty that plagued my very soul. "I don't know," he whispered, his voice heavy with anguish. "Yet there is one certainty I hold. I cannot bear the thought of losing you. Yet, I find myself unable to betray Ben. It is imperative that we determine our next steps." Words eluded me. We both recognized that our actions would alter the course of everything. We faced a choice: to cut the bonds that connected us or to persist along a road that had already taken shape. Nevertheless, the choice required careful consideration. We lingered in the garden, enveloped by the serene hush of the night. A tumult of feelings swirled within me, yet I struggled to articulate the turmoil unfolding in my spirit. This moment stood as the pinnacle of my existence, and I understood that every choice we made would carry weighty repercussions. "We cannot return," I murmured softly, at last discovering my voice. Yet, I find myself at a loss regarding the next steps to take. Jack inclined his head, signaling his agreement with my words. We found ourselves ensnared in a predicament from which there seemed to be no straightforward escape. In that instant, it dawned on me that my existence was incomplete without the presence of the person before me. In the face of countless challenges and enduring heartache, I was certain that our bond transcended any constraints or limitations imposed upon us. "We'll find a way," Jack finally declared, his voice brimming with determination. "It is essential that we embrace honesty, both with one another and within our own hearts." I nodded, sensing the power of his words bolster my resolve. Uncertainty loomed over us, yet in that instant, I understood that I was prepared to embark on this journey, regardless of the challenges that lay ahead. We made our way back to the house, silence enveloping us like a heavy cloak. Yet deep within, I sensed that this dialogue had transformed everything. At that moment, we transcended the roles of father-in-law and daughter-in-law. We had transformed into something greater, an unstoppable force that could not be contained. As dawn broke, I rose to find a weighty burden resting upon my shoulders. The events of the past few days unfolded with a vivid intensity, each charged. Moment with Jack, the stolen kisses, and the unavoidable conversations had coalesced into a reality so tangible that I could no longer suppress my emotions. Once more, Ben had departed for work at the crack of dawn, leaving Jack and me to our solitude within the confines of the house. The palpable tension of his closeness, the awareness of our solitude, and the events that had transpired between us had formed an insurmountable barrier we could no longer overlook. Following breakfast, I tidied the kitchen, attempting to divert my mind from its relentless musings, yet they persisted, buzzing around like unyielding flies, denying me any semblance of tranquility. Jack felt a stirring unease within him as well. I could hear his footsteps echoing in the adjacent room, sensing his gaze upon me each time he strode past. The pressure mounted with every fleeting moment, until I sensed I could bear it no more. Eventually, it dawned on me that I needed to take the initiative. At last, I found the courage to release the emotions I had kept hidden for far too long. I tossed the dishcloth into the sink and made my way to the living room, where Jack was seated on the couch, absorbed in his own reflections. As I stepped inside, he lifted his gaze, and I caught the same fierce flame flickering in his eyes that was kindling my own. Silently, I approached him, my heart pounding with increasing intensity. In the stillness between us, our eyes conveyed a depth of understanding that transcended the limitations of language. In that instant, I realized that resisting this pull was no longer an option. It had grown more powerful than I, and I sensed that Jack shared this realization. He rose to his feet and I moved closer to him. Our closeness was such that our breaths intertwined, becoming a single shared essence. His hand settled gently on my shoulder, and in that instant everything else faded away. The constraints had vanished, leaving behind a landscape free of restrictions. Only the passion remained, a fire igniting between us with each passing moment. Jack drew me nearer and our lips connected once more. Yet this time there was an absence of hesitation or uncertainty. The kiss was imbued with fervor, an uncontainable longing that had finally surfaced. I matched that intensity, sensing my internal defenses dissolve beneath the weight of this emotion. His hands roamed over my body, and a surge of warmth washed over me. He kissed me as though it were the final opportunity for our lips to touch, and I yielded to that instant entirely, losing sight of everything else around us. We were acutely aware that this moment was unavoidable, that we had long since traversed a threshold from which there was no turning back. His hands began to peel away my garments, and I found myself yielding to the moment. This moment belonged solely to us, and I was certain that nothing in existence could hinder our path. Jack scooped me up into his embrace, and I entwined my arms around his neck, savoring the sensation as he carried me down the hallway toward the bedroom. The path to the room stretched out before me, an interminable expanse, while an intense heat of longing coursed through my veins. Anticipation coursed through me as I yearned for our bodies to intertwine, to finally reveal the desires we had kept buried for far too long. As we entered the bedroom, Jack tenderly placed me on the bed, his presence looming above me. His eyes blazed with fervor, and in that instant, I realized he was prepared to offer me all that he possessed. I traced my fingers along his face, savoring each contour, each curve, as our kiss intensified, becoming more fervent. He descended upon me, his lips leaving a searing trail across my skin. I shut my eyes, yielding to the sensations, experiencing each nerve in my body awaken beneath his touch. The dam of my emotions had finally burst, and I could no longer contain what lay within. They surged ahead, unstoppable, like a torrent breaking free from its confines. Jack exuded a softness, yet within his every gesture lay a quiet power that intensified my longing. His hands moved over my body with a gentle curiosity, as if discovering it anew, and each kiss, each caress, swept away all thoughts of the outside world. He ascended my body with a deliberate slowness, his lips gliding upward until they found mine once more. This singular moment, this profound sensation of unity, eclipsed all else. We flowed together in unison, and each breath, each sigh was infused with the fervor that ignited within us. His arms enveloped me, tightening with an intensity that mirrored the quickening rhythm of his body, each moment escalating the connection between us. In that fleeting moment, I was prepared to offer him all that I possessed, and I sensed that he was reciprocating in kind. We were akin to two flames, intertwining and igniting with an ever-increasing brilliance. I found myself unable to contain my emotions, and in that moment, the world around us erupted in a dazzling array of colors. It resembled a dazzling fireworks show, exploding in vibrant colors across the sky, ultimately surrendering to the enveloping darkness of the night. In that instant, I sensed Jack tilt his head back, and together we ascended to a summit that seemed forever beyond our grasp. As the moment came to a close, we reclined next to each other, our breaths coming in quick succession, and I could sense my heart thrumming in harmony with his. We were tethered by an unbreakable force. This moment embodied all our desires, and I realized that everything had shifted irrevocably now. We remained quiet, yet the stillness held no trace of discomfort. It brimmed with the intimacy that enveloped us in that instant. I faced Jack, caressed his cheek, and locked eyes with him. In his eyes, I perceived not merely passion, but something deeper, a bond that had woven itself into an unbreakable thread for us both. "We can no longer conceal this," I murmured, sensing my words reverberate in the stillness of the room. Jack nodded, and in that simple gesture, I grasped that he shared my sentiments. The path behind us had vanished, leaving no option for retreat. This moment marked the dawn of a new chapter for us, an undeniable shift that could no longer be overlooked. We understood that challenging choices and their repercussions loomed ahead. Yet, in that instant, it held no significance. Our time together was what truly mattered. Days had slipped by since the instant Jack and I intertwined, uniting in both flesh and spirit. That moment stood as a pinnacle for both of us, a culmination of all we had been striving for. Yet it also heralded the dawn of a new reality in which we were now destined to exist. I realized that this action had transformed everything. The clarity and peace that once existed between us would fade away. We remained in the same house, yet everything had transformed. Ben remained blissfully unaware, and this only heightened the palpable tension enveloping us. Each moment in his presence felt insincere, as though I were performing in a script I had not authored. Yet, the true tension emerged when Jack and I found ourselves in solitude. These moments brimmed with fervor, intertwined with an undercurrent of peril. We were acutely aware that our bond could not stay concealed indefinitely, that inevitably, we would face a decision that would alter the course of our lives irrevocably. Yet, in this fleeting time, we endeavored to cherish each second we shared, as though they were the final fragments of our joy. On one of those tranquil nights, when the house had surrendered to silence and Ben had drifted into slumber, I found myself once more stepping out onto the porch, seeking solitude with my reflections. The cool night air enveloped me as I inhaled deeply, seeking to soothe my restless mind. My mind wandered back to Jack, to the moments we shared, and to the possibilities that lay ahead of us. A relentless flame flickered within me, refusing to be snuffed out. It transcended mere passion. It was an all-encompassing force that enveloped my very being. I was aware of my love for Jack, yet I recognized that this affection was intertwined with numerous challenges and complexities. As I lingered in contemplation, a sudden sound of footsteps echoed behind me, breaking the stillness. It was Jack. He approached me, and I sensed his hand make contact with my shoulder. The sensation was both known and foreign, causing an involuntary shiver to course through me. I faced him, and within his gaze, I perceived the same blend of fervor and unease that stirred within me. "We can't keep going like this," he said quietly, as though he could sense the turmoil within me. "The situation is growing increasingly perilous, Kate. A decision must be made." He was undeniably correct. We could no longer exist in this realm of clandestine gatherings and concealed emotions. A decision loomed before us, demanding careful consideration. "What are your recommendations?" I inquired, striving to maintain a calm demeanor, even as turmoil raged within me. Jack paused for a moment, weighing his words carefully. He appeared to be wrestling with his own thoughts, searching for an escape from the predicament, yet the anguish in his eyes revealed the turmoil he sought to conceal. "I don't know," he finally admitted, "but I can no longer bear to witness your suffering. It is time for us to determine our next course of action. Perhaps we ought to reveal the truth to Ben?" His words hit me with the force of a thunderbolt. His suggestion caught me off guard, yet I couldn't deny the reasoning behind it. We were never meant to remain in the shadows indefinitely. Yet, how could I confess to Ben the truth of what had transpired? What would his response be? My mind was a tempest of thoughts, each one elusive, leaving me without a clear answer. "It will annihilate all," I murmured, a shiver coursing through my veins. Is this truly the correct path we should be taking? Jack drew nearer, his hand caressing my cheek, and I was enveloped by his warmth. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice tinged with a palpable pain that resonated deeply. "Yet there is one certainty I hold. No longer can I endure this deception. You hold an immense significance in my life. I would go to any lengths to be by your side, Kate." His words stirred my thoughts. He spoke with an honesty that resonated within me. Yet I was acutely aware that the choice we had just made would alter the course of our lives forever. Our former life would remain forever out of reach. Perhaps that wasn't essential? We lingered in the stillness of the night, the tension enveloping us like a heavy fog. This moment had undeniably transformed into a pivotal juncture in our lives. The path behind was irrevocably closed. I no longer wished to conceal myself, I finally declared, solidifying my choice. However, caution is essential. Allow me a moment to reflect on everything. Jack nodded, grasping that my request wasn't for retreat, but rather a call to brace ourselves for the challenges that awaited. He enveloped me in his embrace, his arms securing me as though shielding me from the vastness of the world beyond. In that instant, I realized I was prepared to risk everything to be by his side, regardless of the repercussions. In the days that followed, I sought a way to reveal the truth to Ben. Yet each time I tried to initiate the dialogue, an invisible force restrained me. It felt as though a weight pressed down upon me, constricting my breath and stifling my freedom. It was clear to me that action was necessary, yet the path forward remained shrouded in uncertainty. Jack sensed the tension as well, yet he made an effort to refrain from imposing any pressure on me. Our clandestine gatherings persisted, yet an air of melancholy overshadowed the moments that once brimmed with delight. We were acutely aware that the time was approaching, a moment when we would face a choice that would alter the course of our lives forever. On a day when the house lay silent, its emptiness palpable in Ben's absence as he ventured off on business, Jack approached me. He exuded a sense of calm, yet within his eyes, there flickered a determination I had never observed until now. He came closer and in silence grasped my hand, guiding me toward the bedroom. I understood his desires. In that instant, I found myself yearning for it as well. We could no longer linger in silence, nor conceal the depths of our emotions. I trailed behind him, a blaze of desire kindling deep inside me. This was our moment, and we must not allow it to fade into the shadows. As Jack shut the bedroom door, a wave of relief washed over me, dissipating the tension that had lingered in the atmosphere. He enveloped me in his arms, and our lips connected once more in a kiss. Yet on this occasion it was not merely longing that fueled their connection, but a steadfast determination to unite, regardless of the obstacles. This moment marked the dawn of a new chapter, one we could no longer overlook. As we reclined together on the bed, I sensed his hands starting to peel away my garments, and I yielded entirely to this sensation. In our unity, each fleeting moment brimmed with fervor and affection. It transcended mere physical allure. It was the profound connection of two souls that had at long last discovered one another. Jack's birthday was envisioned as a serene and intimate gathering, with only the three of us within the walls of our home, a sanctuary that had transformed into a vault for our deepest secrets. From the break of dawn, an unsettling sensation enveloped me, as though an unavoidable fate was drawing near. Yet I resisted the urge to linger on it. I needed to concentrate on my strategy. I resolved to present Jack with a unique token of my appreciation. It needed to transcend mere gesture. It had to convey the depth of emotions I had concealed for far too long. In a flash, the notion struck me, and I found myself unable to release it. I ventured to the store in search of the ideal outfit, one that would express the fervor and exhilaration that ignited within me. The shop brimmed with alluring costumes, yet my gaze was irresistibly drawn to one in particular. A latex ensemble featuring a daringly short skirt and an enigmatic mask. It was flawless. I was certain that Jack would grasp it all without a single word when he laid eyes on me in this ensemble. I acquired it, concealed it within my closet, and penned a brief note for Jack, detailing the time and place for our rendezvous. With a quiet determination, I tucked the note into his bag, wishing for the perfect moment when he would discover it. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we convened around the table, a festive air enveloping us as we celebrated the birthday. Ben radiated cheerfulness, weaving jokes and tales with his usual flair, blissfully oblivious to the shadows lurking beneath the surface. Jack appeared composed, yet I could discern the same flicker of intensity in his gaze that mirrored my own. It remained our clandestine affair, shrouded in secrecy from the world around us. The dinner unfolded seamlessly, as if each moment was choreographed to perfection. Everything shifted when Ben abruptly recalled the important documents he had recently placed in Jack's bag. It caught me off guard, yet I brushed it aside without much contemplation. As Ben stepped into another room in pursuit of the documents, I remained at the table, absorbed in my own reflections as I continued to clear the surface. A few minutes later he returned and said, "You know, I must leave urgently for the night." He stated with an unexpected calmness, "We'll need to defer our discussion until tomorrow." His words resonated with the finality of a sentence, yet I found myself unable to contest them. He swiftly gathered his things, pressed a kiss to my cheek, and departed, leaving me in solitude with Jack. Confusion enveloped me, yet a singular truth pierced through the haze. A dreadful fate loomed before us. Once he departed, I sensed the tension within me surge to its zenith. It was clear to me that Ben had a scheme in mind, yet the specifics eluded my imagination. As the evening unfolded, Jack and I shared moments together, yet with each glance he cast my way, I couldn't help but notice the persistent shadow of anxiety lurking in his eyes. As the house settled into a hush, I donned the carefully crafted costume, and together with Jack, we made our way to the bedroom. This was our moment, and I understood that I must seize the opportunity at once, while it was still within our grasp. As I stepped into the bedroom, I found Jack already awaiting my arrival. His eyes sparkled with delight upon catching sight of me in the costume. I started to dance, a fervent fire igniting within me. It was a liberation, a manifestation of all that we shared for one another. In that instant, the bedroom door burst open, and I found myself paralyzed. Ben lingered in the doorway, his expression a tumultuous blend of fury and anguish. He remained silent, merely observing the events that were unfolding before him. "What is happening in this place?" His voice dripped with a low, menacing undertone. Jack leaped from the bed, a shadow crossing his face as the stark truth settled in. There was nothing left to conceal. "You have betrayed my trust," Ben snarled, propelling himself toward Jack with clenched fists. "You, my father." The strikes landed with an intensity one had never witnessed in Ben prior to this moment. Jack stood his ground, yet it was evident that he was reluctant to inflict pain on his son. This battle was steeped in anguish and disillusionment, and I sensed it would signify the conclusion of all that we once understood. At last, Ben exerted such force on Jack that he tumbled to the ground. I hurried to his aid, yet Ben held me back, his gaze seething with animosity. "Leave the two of you." He spoke with an unsettling tranquility. "I wish to part ways and never cross paths again. For all eternity." Every fiber of my being felt as though it was unraveling. Yet I understood that we were left with no alternatives. Jack and I departed the house in silence, forsaking all that had once held meaning for us. We departed in the stillness of night, when silence enveloped the house like a veil, hiding all evidence of what had occurred. The details of our packing escape me, as do the words I exchanged with Jack. All around me, reality dissolved into a singular, indistinct smear, as though these occurrences were unfolding not in my life, but in the life of another. We were akin to two phantoms, gliding away from a fractured realm, seeking to flee from what could never be mended. Jack navigated the road in silence, his expression devoid of emotion, gaze unwaveringly directed forward. I sought some flicker of emotion in his gaze, a whisper of the turmoil within, yet all I encountered was a chilling, profound void. Silence enveloped us. We shared no words, offered no looks, and refrained from any physical contact. In that moment it felt as though words were superfluous, almost an intrusion. We both recognized that the fabric of our lives had been irrevocably altered, and in that moment we grasped the profound loss we had endured: family, home, and the serenity we once knew. What lingered were only memories, accompanied by a bitterness that seeped in.